Okay, so Washington, as our first president, one of the things that he does, he establishes a lot of precedents, but he also gives this, well, not really address, but he gives an address, it's on paper and speaks it. And most of it's about domestic stuff. I guess that's what an address is. Most of it's about domestic stuff, but at the end he actually warns America. Be careful of foreign entanglements. America is too young, and we're in such a precarious state. Do not involve ourselves in foreign alliances. Remember, he got us out of the Franco-American alliance with the Neutrality Proclamation. Well, moving us out of the Franco-American alliance. He actually said the political parties were bad. But what he warned against was foreign entanglements. And our foreign policy will essentially be isolationism for the next 100 years. We will have wars, but it'll always be our country versus another country. We're not actually going to involve ourselves in alliances really until World War I. Think about this. This farewell address essentially laid the groundwork for our foreign policy for 125 years. That's a big speech. Nothing I ever say lasts more than 10 minutes. 125 years.
Not true. She knows the last 15.
So isolation in the last year.
Almost until we did not have many alliances with countries until almost World War I, with very few exceptions. We became imperialist at the turn of the century, around 1900. But even then, it wasn't about aligning ourselves with other countries. It was more about just dominating other countries. And Washington's also going to establish a lot of precedents. Remind me, what's a precedent? Does anyone know what a precedent is?
Use it first.
Yeah, first people are going to follow after him, right? So, yeah.
Cabinet.
Yeah, he was the first one to have a cabinet, right? So other presidents are going to choose cabinets. A lot of law has precedent, right? So let's say that Hannah McDonald over there, I'm calling on her and she's getting mad and getting mad and getting mad, and so finally she sits up and she takes a club and she hits me in the head. All right? Now this is the first time in a long time that a student has got up and hit me in the head with a club, right? And so Hannah's going to be punished. Now let's say they don't have a precedent for this. We've never had this happen before. What do we do with Hannah? Right? So let's say Hannah goes to jail for hitting someone as important specifically as me. Right? And she goes to jail for 3 years. Now I'm back to teaching. I finally restored my sanity. Now I'm teaching her brother in class in a couple years. Yeah, your brother. In class in a couple years. And he finally gets tired of it and he hits me in the head with a club. Do the authorities have an idea of what they're going to do with young Meredith? Why?
Because it's precedent.
A precedent has been set on how to handle Hannah. Does this make sense? When people do things first, then we know how to follow. Those of you who sometimes in law it happens with performance-enhancing drugs. Nathan, can you think of anyone in your favorite sport who's used performance-enhancing drugs in cycling? All the cyclists use performance-enhancing drugs, most notably Lance Armstrong, right? And so what happened was the first guy that won the Tour de France and got caught with using performance-enhancing drugs, what did they do to him? Stripped him of his title, right? And the next guy stripped him of his title. So now every time you get this, you get your title taken away. Lance Armstrong actually got 7 titles taken away. Do what? Isn't that crazy? 7 times. He cheated for 7 years. The best part about it wasn't that he cheated. He went after people who accused him of cheating. And was suing them and stuff for having the audacity to say that he was cheating. Even though he was cheating the whole time.
Pretty smart.
Ball smart. Okay, another one people say, well, he only had a 2-term presidency. Although many people say that he's not the father of the 2-term presidency, maybe Jefferson is. Because Jefferson could have kept running and chose not to. Washington was sick and probably couldn't have made it, so he quit for reasons other than, I'm a great guy and I want to stop doing this.
Was his
He had 2 terms. He got elected twice.
I know, but were they 4 years like they're now?
Absolutely, yeah. They were, and that the Constitution calls for 4-year terms. Wasn't up until 1952 though, where you could have stopped. Like now, you have to stop after 2 terms. Up until 1952, you could keep running as long as you wanted. In fact, FDR won 4 different times. So that is that's why they say this is a precedent. Okay. Let's talk about the election of 1796. All right. On one side, you have John Adams. And on the other side, you have Thomas Jefferson. These guys, for a long time, were really good friends. And they stopped being good friends for a while. This election was really close. New York swung it towards Adams. Adams becomes the 2nd president. Who becomes vice president back then? The guy who finished 2nd. The first 2 elections, whoever finished first became president, whoever finished 2nd became vice president. So Jefferson became vice president, and he hated being vice president. So he's vice president for 1 term. It was a pretty ugly election, although it's going to get even uglier the next time they run. But the big thing with Adams is war with France. I always say that this is my favorite war, but this is one of my favorite wars. It's a quasi-war. What's quasi mean? It means like kind of, right? It's a kind of war. The quasi-war. We're still pissed off at France. Why are we mad at France? I'm sorry. The Jeffersonians are mad at the British because of Jay's Treaty, right? So we're in between these 2 things. And the French were really upset about Jay's Treaty because they thought that we were going to side with them, right? We had the Franco-American Alliance, and all of a sudden America signs this Jay's Treaty that makes us look like we are going, not only living up to our alliance, but who's France's biggest enemy? England. So not only are we not living up to our alliance, we're also siding with their mortal enemy. And they are furious about this. So France is really upset. They saw this as a violation, and they start seizing American ships. They start taking our ships, and they start taking our sailors. So now you got British impressing our people, and you have French people impressing our people. Everybody, I wouldn't want to be a sailor. Everyone keeps getting impressed. So America sent over a delegation to Paris to try to work this out, including a guy named John Marshall, who will end up being our secretary, our longest-serving Chief Justice. Okay, so you have the U.S. and they're going over to Paris. All right, and they wanted to meet. The French guy they wanted to meet with was named Talleyrand. Did you ever learn about Talleyrand last year during the French Revolution? Their foreign minister was a guy named Talleyrand. Now, it wasn't uncommon back then. If you were a delegation, you had to bribe government officials just to see this guy. That was kind of how many European countries worked. And these 3 people who were known to history as X, Y, and Z, right? They go up, they're through Talleyrand. They say, listen, you can talk to Talleyrand, you can negotiate, but 2 things have to happen. Number 1, you have to give us a 32 million florin bribe. And number 2, we want $250,000 up front. Just to be allowed to talk to Talleyrand to work this out. Marshall tells them where he can stick it. They go back to America. It comes out the French are trying to force us to bribe them. We get pissed off, and now everybody wants war. The Federalists are saying, look at the Jeffersonians, these pro-French people. They're awful. And the quasi-war starts. This was called, by the way, the XYZ affair. The XYZ affair when they tried to force a bribe. Bribe. It's a fun word. So this is actually, how many of you have ever heard of an organization called the Marines? This is when the Marines were established. The Marines were established as a result of the quasi-war. And so there's like this undeclared naval warfare where we're trying to sink their stuff, they're taking all of our crap. We actually created our first ever Navy. Up until this point, we had 3 ships in our Navy. Think about that. Our Navy was 3 ships. So we get a Marine Corps, we get a bigger Navy, we call a bunch of troops, We suspend trade. Most of the fighting went on down in the Caribbean. And the thing is, Adams probably, had he gone into full war with the French, probably could have been reelected. But as he saw it, and the quasi-war was heating up, and it looked like it might be a real war, if we go to a real war with France, what's going to happen? What's going to happen to America? We're going to win or we're going to lose? We're losing this. And Adams saw this. I could go to war and win an election, but we very well may get beat back pretty bad. And the French may be coming back and taking land here, and we'll be dealing with the French forever. So what he decides to do is both courageous but politically unfortunate. He convenes the Convention of 1800. The French saw that if they made America their ally again, that could be good against Britain. So Adams worked at a deal stopping the quasi-war and effectively ending the Franco-American alliance. We're going to be friends, but now you don't have to live up to any sort of alliance. So we are out of an alliance with France. We normalized relations with France. We're not in a war with France. Things are calmed down. Why is this good? I want you to think about 3 years later what's going to happen in America that we get from France that wouldn't have happened had we not done this. Louisiana Purchase. Had we not made our peace with France, we would have never bought the most fertile land in the world from them for 3 cents an acre. Point of interest. If you're ever given the opportunity to buy a ton of land for 3 cents an acre, I don't care what kind of land it is, what should you do? You should buy it. If you have 40 bucks, think about how many acres that is. That's a lot of acres. What's that, 33 times 40? 1,200 acres? It's a lot of acres for 40 bucks. Just imagine what $15 million would get you. You know what it would get you?
Louisiana.
The Louisiana Purchase. Right? You get land all the way here. It's a good deal. Okay. Adams saw this as the best thing that he did. The Convention of 1800, he saw this as the greatest thing that he had ever done. Although it was bad for him politically, Adams knew this was the right thing to do. It sets up the fact that we can now buy the Louisiana Purchase a couple of years later. We're not going to go to war. Good things are on the horizon. Now we're going to go back for a second, and the Alien and Sedition Acts are really important. Hannah, what's the number on that? Or Quinn, whichever one you see.
13.
You start it, stop it, start it. Red button twice.